but it's a wonderful opportunity now that we have the technology to include all of you. We have an interesting mix, a fascinating mix of people live and online, people who are very experienced, some experienced complete beginners. So this is going to take some choreography, even if you were all live. But we're ready to start. Okay, so welcome.
She wanted tiling.
Hey,
can you make
so
the pictures?
let me, I need a few more adjustments.
So I can see your pieces.
For the sun. Is that possible to move the screen there, just so over the sun so I can see? Thank you. I just need to check. Mary, I need to make sure she's pinned. I just can't see that well.
It's only pinned if it's going
pinned and spotlighted, okay?
Okay.
So now we should be able to, I don't know if we can change it and have her.
We'll see. It's recording.
You're recording with the other camera?
The other camera's recording, yeah. Except it may have shut itself off.
Okay, let me see if she's still pinned. Yeah, see, I can't do that. For the recording, I can't change the screen.
And you just had it changed.
But then it, I always forget D, doesn't record with only.
Okay.
Log on.
Is there a Zoom link I can
get
onto?
Yeah. So she can get on Zoom here, and then that means she can adjust it how she wants it. But yeah, I've been through this before, and then we don't get it. So what you could do if you were in another spot, you could have an additional computer available just to log on to for her.
Used to be the last half, now it's further.
So that she can see everything.
I mean, I live now over here with my.
I do,
It's not left by my parents.
Did you send her?
I thought that I did.
Did you send it out yesterday?
Because I didn't.
And this morning. So let me send it to her.
All-time days. The orchards.
Yeah.
She's an alarm that's going to go off every time she gets an email. I don't know.
There's a key in the keyboard. It's a silhouette of a speaker without any waves coming out of it, and that will automatically mute it.
I did send it to her. Her email's there, so. Barbara's joining just so she can see you. We need to, she needs to mute her. And also her computer.
We're getting some feedback, Tana.
Yeah, we're
Yeah,
working
we're
at it.
fixing it. Okay, and now we need to have Barbara.
Okay, good enough. Time is running on. We're going to start it by a very quick go around and have people introduce themselves. There are some of you that I've never met, some who have never met me. Obviously, I'm Barbara Brodsky. I'm the founding and guiding teacher of Deep Spring Center. We're sitting right now in my home office. So we pulled this workshop out of Interfaith Center, which is a very big sanctuary room. And we felt we'd be floating around into the more intimate atmosphere here. So I'm simply going to ask people, can the camera focus on people as they introduce themselves here? Does the camera turn? Or do people need to walk up and stand in front of it?
Walk up.
Okay, so one at a time. Would you come up and go where? Can it pull back? Do they have to? Do I need to get out of my chair?
Well, one says no, one says yes, so we'll just let me decide for now.
And let her know what you're going to do.
Okay, so
Great. Okay, Jim,
let me pull it out.
On the rug.
You seem to be on the screen. Please, we need to keep this short, the introductions. Tell us your name, where you are from, and just a minute or two of your Vipassana practice. Jim, will you start?
I seem to be in the middle, so I will say I am Jim. I'm here in Ann Arbor, and the start of my Vipassana practice was when I came to Barbara, although I had been doing mantra meditation at various times in my life before then.
Yeah, and I'm a very similar sort of student of Barbara's. I came to her house in 1995.
Is Jim still talking?
And I'm Dorothy Ann Coyne. I've been her student since 95, which is about, 20 some years. So my practice goes along every day. I sit and watch things happen in my mind and stuff. Just do it.
Can everybody hear
come over
online?
and sign,
Thumb
please?
up? Okay.
Lolita, while the camera is that way, will you introduce yourself?
My name is Lalita. I learned to meditate in 1988, and I became a member of Deep Spring Center in 2003. And Vipassana has changed my life, my orientation toward life very much. It's particularly useful in these times that we live in currently. I live in Ann Arbor.
All right, so there you go, you three.
Hi, I'm Kiara Hensley. I'm from Ann Arbor. I've been experiencing with meditation for about 3 years, but I'm new to this. So,
Hi, I'm Chaitanya. I got introduced to meditation when I was in India, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, but my practice is not very strong. I've been doing meditation on and off. And I'm from Ann Arbor.
I'm Dallas. I'm from a little town outside of Ann Arbor, Manchester. I've been doing Korean tradition meditation for 30 years. And I've had zero Vipassana instruction.
Okay.
Mary.
Mary.
Where are you, Mary?
I don't know where I am.
There you are. No,
Mary.
you're here.
I'm in a chair. I live here in Ann Arbor, and meditation includes TM for about 13 years and about 5 years of the Vipassana. And yeah,
And your full name?
Mary Brewy.
Okay. So I'm going to read.
Thank you. So
Online.
let's go back, Dorothy, and I'm going to need you to tell me what they're saying. The people online, let's start with Michelle. Unmute your mic, Michelle.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, hi, I'm Michelle. I have no Vipassana training. I do Oren and Deben light body meditations, and I'm from Canada, so I'm very excited to see you all next week, or this week, I guess.
Next week. Next week, a week from today, a week from tomorrow.
Isabel, thank you, Michelle. Isabel. All three of you, Isabel, Roger, Sean, one at a time.
So I'm Isabel Muksho Dwayne. Well, all three of us also live in Canada. We're in Ottawa, and I'm on the Deep Spring board, and I've been meditating for a couple of years now. Wait for Dorothy to finish. Okay.
My name's Roger. As Isabel said, I also live here in Canada. I'm on the archives committee with Deep Spring. I have some years of on and off meditation experience. I would say very limited personal Vipassana instruction.
Hi, my name is Sean Hubert. I also live in Ottawa, obviously. I've dabbled with meditation over the years, but I've never had formal Vipassana instructions.
Okay, who else? Michelle.
Thank you all.
I'll let her.
Rita. You'll need to unmute, Rita.
You should be all set to talk, Rita.
She's on the phone, right?
We've got two. Maybe both are her. Both might be Rita. Maybe she wants to use her phone. So try her phone.
Okay. Okay. The
Yes,
phone.
I'm sorry for the confusion. I don't have a mic on my computer.
We can hear you.
We can hear you.
Okay. My name is Rita Mazakia. I live in Dayton, Ohio. And I am just beginning to explore Vipassana meditation. I have no formal training in any meditation, but am very interested in Vipassana. Thank you.
I see on the computer a name Rita and then a phone number under it. Is this a second person?
No, it's the same person.
Same person. Okay.
I don't have a microphone on my computer.
Anyone else online who has not?
She said something.
I don't have a microphone on my computer.
Okay. Thank you. So our format for today. I am now going to start with part 1 of introductory instruction for about 40 minutes. Then, and everybody is welcome to stay and listen. Those who are here live, who don't want to listen to the introductory instruction, are welcome to go into my living room and meditate, or to go out on my deck, which may still be a little bit cold, but the sun is shining on it, and meditate. In about 45 minutes, we'll switch, and I'll give experienced instruction. Probably go around and hear from some of you and more about your practice and more one-on-one instruction, but we'll see how we'll do that. The beginners are welcome to listen. It may not make a lot of sense to you, but that's okay. So you can just listen. Or you can go off and try what we talked about and meditate, have a cup of tea, drinking tea meditation, lying down, taking a nap at meditation. We'll take a break for lunch, early lunch, and then we'll go around and do the same thing exactly again. And then at the last half hour, we'll have a kind of closing up any questions. During lunch, I will be available to people for questions live and online. Any questions about the procedure? Okay, this is trying to weave all of this together. It will work. We're here today to learn about Vipassana, to deepen Vipassana practice. I am talking to people in the room and to a blue dot on the camera. I want to try to spend my time moving between both. So sometimes those online will see me looking at you, and sometimes you'll see me looking away, and that's fine. My own personal practice and what I teach here at Deep Spring is a mix of Vipassana and pure awareness meditation. They're both valuable practices. On retreat, we'll mix them, but today we're just focusing on Vipassana. Vipassana. When I first met this practice, for about a year, I mispronounced it as Vipassana. And nobody can correct it because I don't hear. So I said, are you all ready to practice Vipassana? The word pasana means seeing, to see, and vipassana means deeper, clearer seeing. There are many forms of meditation. In some practices, we focus with deep concentration. Some practices chant, use a mantra. Some practices simply use movement. My colleague John Orr talks about when he was first a monk in Thailand, a practice in which he was supposed to move his hand in certain ways as he meditated in a monastery in Thailand. And my point is simply there's no one right or wrong form of practice. It's like if I want to build something and I have a toolbox. I've got all the pieces assembled. I need to put them together. I use the hammer, nails. But if I haven't assembled the pieces at all yet, I'm going to need a saw and a tape measure. There's no one right tool. What are we trying to accomplish? I think for most of us gathered here today, our highest intention is learning how to live with more love. Learning how to live in this sometimes pretty crazy world. Keeping our hearts open to the external and the internal catalysts, to the politics and earthquakes and all of this nightmare going on in the world, and to our bodies that are sometimes painful or sick, our emotions. This is what we have to practice with. How do we make our experience into a practice instead of something that's assaulting us that we have to fix or get away from? In other words, how can we open our hearts to these truly challenging experiences, human experiences? Vipassana for me is the clearest tool to doing this. There's a second part of it, of the reason for practicing. First, we just practice with what comes up. Grief, body pain, fear, anger. We start to see the habitual patterns and the storylines that have come with those patterns. Stories like, poor me, or I'm unworthy, I'm not good enough, or I've got to control everything, carry everything. Are you familiar with some of these stories? I think you probably are. It's so easy to get hooked into the storyline. A very powerful experience for me and at least one of us here today, maybe more, was at a retreat, a summer retreat we held at a new place. And there was a children's day camp going on there. And we were separate from the children, but they brought them down to the lake to swim each day and to boat. So they took these little children out onto the lake in a boat, and a giant had apparently pulled up a lily pad. And the boats were coming back, and I guess she dropped it. Here we were, about 40 people in silence, and suddenly this child started screaming, "I want my lily pad!" Do you remember?
Yes.
It went on, and her counselors couldn't console her. "I want my lily pad!" We had been meditating for 4 or 5 days. We were in a very deep, quiet place. And her lily pad became the metaphor for so much longing for all of us. All the stories, I can't hold on to my lily pad. I keep losing my lily pad. Life is not fair to me. I'm not good enough for I'd be able to hold on to it. For each of us, the stories came up and the counselors came up so sorry that they could not control this outbreak and they didn't want to harm the child. And all we could say is, it's perfect. Let her cry. She's crying for all of us. What is your personal lily pad? Right now, for me, my husband had a major stroke last February. I want my husband. He's recovering very slowly in a nursing home now. I want my husband. So I wake up sometimes in the middle of the night with this cry out for my lily pad to come back. Coming back to Vipassana. With Vipassana, we see what has arisen into our experience and is so predominant. It's right there, stage front. And we begin to be able to pay attention to it, not as something out there, not without the story being real in terms of, oh, I've lost this and I have to get it back, but simply seeing it's just one more object to which I am attached. And sometimes, obviously, we are attached. I want my husband. I want my health. I want my ease and happiness. I don't want to be in pain. I want to be able to love the people around me. And sometimes these things seem so elusive. But most of us have developed a habitual pattern when something seems to be slipping out of our grasp, either to move into a state of helplessness, poor me, or to armor ourselves, grasp, I'm going to get that back, I'm going to fix everything. Or just a state of denial. With Vipassana, with this deeper seeing, we develop the ability to be present with what has arisen that we really didn't want to be present with, and to find a new way to be with it. When we're with what has arisen with more ease and spaciousness, then we're able to work with it with an open heart. In part, when the body is contracted in fear and grasping, it cuts down the whole energy field. I'm looking at what you can see on there. Here above me, you can't really see it. There's a chart of the chakras. From white, indigo, blue, green, yellow, orange, red. The chakras run through our body. The chakras, when we're contracted with fear and anger and whatever emotion, we close up our energy field. When we close our energy field in that way, it makes it impossible for us to find any peace and really to begin to resolve the challenge, because our whole energy field is so tight. So these are some of the fruits of Vipassana, at least letting go of the story. Finding more peace, finding the ability to deal with ourselves and our world with more love. If this is not what you're after, then thank you for coming and you need to go someplace else. But if it is what you're after, hang in there. Let's go into the next step. Dana, I need to ask you, for the final documentary you're trying to make, it will be okay if I'm not always looking at the blue light, yes?
Yes.
Okay. It's a little hard giving a Dharma talk to a blue light challenge. With the practice, we start with the breath, or any primary object, but usually the breath. So let's just sit up a bit and do this together. Feel the breath coming into the nostrils. And then out. The in-breath, if you feel it on the upper lip and nostrils, is a little bit cooler. And the out-breath, a little bit warmer. Breathing in and breathing out. Don't try to follow the breath all the way down into the chest and the belly. Just the light touch of the nostrils. One area of focus. Breathing in and breathing out. Breathing in and breathing out. Know if you're breathing in a long breath or a short breath. Know if you're breathing out a long or a short breath. Know if the texture of the breath is very coarse or very fine. Just notice it. Don't change it. Just notice it. But if by this point you've completely lost your breath, you're not focused on the breath anymore, but on my words, or maybe on a little bit of tightness in the body, or some sound from outside, just note hearing or feeling sensation, drifting, sleepy, feeling a lot of body agitation. Whatever it is, just notice it. And then gently let it go and come back to the breath. We just keep doing this. The breath is the primary object. Let me add as a note here for the experienced student. Of course, many of you work with different primary objects, and in the next talk, we'll go on to that. But for now, even the experienced folks that usually use nada or energy or light, just try it with the breath. So we have the breath coming in and out, and then hearing, hearing, hearing. That sound has become predominant. You pulled your attention away from the breath, and this is normal. The error that so many people make in Vipassana practice is with the belief. One moment, please. I think I forgot to turn my recorder on. No, I'm recording. Okay. The error that so many people make is the belief that we're supposed to stay with that one fixed object. If you're doing a concentration practice, and Vipassana it asks for concentration, but it's not what I would call a one-focused concentration practice. We use instead what we call choiceless awareness. To be present with whatever is predominant. And if it ceases to be predominant, to come back to the primary object. Here's the breath. So, if your attention moves from the breath, don't say, oh, I can't meditate. I can't keep my attention fixed on the breath, because that's not what we're doing. Simply note where the attention has gone. Here we have, sometimes it's called preening the puppy. I happen to have a puppy here. I don't know if you can see him in the camera. Banner, come. 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 Can the camera see him? A little bit. Can we tilt it down a little, or is that not possible? Just a brief. All right. Can you pan out a little? Okay. Banner, come. Banner, sit. What a good boy. So we train the puppy. But if the puppy gets up and runs around, we don't say bad dog, we just say, Banner, sit. Good boy. And so we do the same thing for ourselves. We just keep inviting ourselves back. The mind drifts off. Banner can have his bone again. He was being so good. The mind drifts off. And then we just note, it's gotten up, it's walked off. This is not my intention. Come back. But if the object that's become predominant is very strong, we don't try to force it away. Let's say that I had a pain in my body, a cramp in my side, pain, tightness. It's pulling my attention away from my breath. I move to it. Breathing in, I am aware of the tightness. Breathing out, I hold space for the tightness. Feeling the tightness for a few breaths. Watching what happens to it. As I observe it, does it become more intense? Does it soften? What happens to it? So I'm feeling where the tightness is here in my side, and I actually do have tightness, cramping in the ribs here. Feeling that. I'm breathing a deep breath, opening the ribs. Not to fix it, just out of kindness. I'm massaging it a little bit. Feeling the tightness resolve. I bring my attention back to my breath. Back to the touch of the breath at the nostrils. Breathing in, breathing out. Breathing in and breathing out. So that was a body sensation that pulled my attention away from the breath. But maybe it's a sound. Hearing. The sound doesn't hold me the same way the breath did this sound, because the nature of this bell is it will fade. The sound will fade away. But if there's somebody with a jackhammer in the street in front of my house, it's going to be different. My attention is certainly going to go to that. Hear it. And then blissfully it stops. I bring my attention back to my breath. Maybe 2 or 3 breaths, no jackhammer, but then I notice tension. The part of me that's waiting, is it going to start again? Tension. I don't try to fix the tension, I watch it. I might ask it very gentle, what is this tension? I might begin to see it's based on the aversion to the jackhammer and fear. So I start to see right here, this tension is fear. Breathing in, I'm aware of the fear. Breathing out, I hold space for the fear. Again, there's nothing to fix. It has arisen out of conditions, and when conditions cease, it will cease. There's nothing to fix. Maybe I'm meditating outside, and my eyes are open, and suddenly a huge monarch butterfly lands on a flower in my garden. See it. My attention is no longer with the breath. Here's this beautiful butterfly. I don't have to push the vision away. I don't have to close my eyes. I am just present with the butterfly, with as much kindness and love as possible. I watch how I'm relating to this very pleasant object. So beautiful, and then it flies away. Contracting, grasping. I want my lily pad. I want my butterfly. I thought he was going to take up residence in my garden. He's gone. We begin to watch these objects that arise, physical and mental. They will arise through one of our sense doors. By sense door, I mean a part of us that's open to reception. My eye makes contact with an object and seeing consciousness arises. My ear makes contact with an object and hearing consciousness arises. My body touches an object and feeling consciousness arises. Or in the case of the cramp in my ribs here, my body is just reacting to the touch, sitting in the chair, sitting a little unmoving. Tension, tension. My nose makes contact with an object. The scent consciousness arises. Tongue, tasting consciousness. My mind is also a sense door. It makes contact with an object, a thought. And thinking consciousness arises. Whatever arises in our experience, whatever it is, it will either be pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. When we don't attend to this reality, we think things should be different. It shouldn't be unpleasant. Well, if there's a skunk in the yard that's let off its smell, it's going to be unpleasant. If I stub my toe and there's pain, it's going to be unpleasant. The butterfly is going to be pleasant. Somebody brings me a delicious smoothie. Pleasant, pleasant as I sip it. Somebody comes up and begins to massage my neck gently. Ah, touching, pleasant. One moment, please don't let him chew on his leash. Give him the bone instead. Training the puppy. And Banner is a 2-year-old, a little out of early puppyhood. He's learning to be a service dog, and he's doing wonderfully. But he's still puppyish and does silly things at times. Training the puppy. Training our minds not to get caught up in the stories. My side shouldn't hurt. I'm teaching a day of meditation today. It's not fair. I don't want my side to hurt. I don't want a cramp in my ribs. Can you feel that? Ah, breathing in and feeling tension. There's a difference between that physical experience here and the stories that are arising about. This is a physical experience. And then the mind jumps in and says, it's not fair. Why is this happening? How can I fix it? Who's doing this to me? Whatever stories we have. In this moment, just some tenderness in my ribs. In this moment, just the skunk that has squirted in my yard and walked off. In this moment, just the workman on the road with the jackhammers. Some of it is pleasant, some is unpleasant. So for this first step of practice, a big core of what I want you to do, 2 things. I want you to bring attention to the breath as a primary object. For those who are much more experienced and are using different primary objects, that's fine. Use whatever you normally use as a primary object. For those who are new, the breath. When something pulls your attention away from the breath, step 2, it will pull your attention away from the breath. If a little voice says, oh, I should be with the breath, just say, oh, is that so? It was a little story. You noted a story and come back to the breath. Anything that brings your attention away from your primary object, just allow attention to be with this now predominant object. And become aware, is this object pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral? If it's pleasant, watch how liking arises. If it's unpleasant, note how dislike arises. This is also completely normal. Dislike will arise when anything is unpleasant. Liking will arise when anything is pleasant. If the thought comes up, I shouldn't like or dislike this, I'm supposed to be meditating. Oh, is that so? And at that moment, just cut into it and come back to the breath. But if it's a strong object, like the skunk smell or the jackhammer or a strong body pain, it's fine to keep your attention with the direct experience. In hearing the jackhammer, just hear. In smelling the skunk, just smell. In feeling the painful body sensation, just feeling pain, burning, throbbing, tightness. Or maybe it's a mental object, like worry. Mind going to something that happened or something you're afraid will happen. Just note it as think. Unpleasant thought. You can take it a step further if you wish. In a sense, I'm putting beginner and intermediate instructions together. If something comes up that has your attention and is strongly pleasant or unpleasant, and it moves from liking into grasping, or from unpleasant into strong aversion, begin to feel, how does that feel in the body? This pain, nausea, headache, backache, how does it feel in the body? I don't mean how does the backache feel in the body, but what is my body doing around this backache? So for example, I still have this cramp here, and I can feel my belly tightening against it. So what I'm doing is breathing in, inviting the breath, not just watching it here at the nostril, but drawing it down into the belly and feeling the softness of the belly. Not trying to make the belly soft, feeling the already present softness of the belly, which helps to release the tension around the backache and spasm. And I might stay with that for 10 seconds or 10 minutes. But as I feel it soften, then I return to my primary object. I'm giving you a lot of information here. We'll have some time. I think I'm going to change the agenda of the day to some extent. Give us more time for questions as well. If what has come up is a thought, agitation, worrying about something, watch the inclination to get caught up in the storyline of that thought. Instead, just note, thinking, and feel the tension of the thought in the body. So our practice invites us not to get caught up in the content of thoughts, but simply to know them as pleasant or unpleasant, and find a place in the body where we can begin to watch the expression of the thought in the body. Even a pleasant thought can lead to grasping. I want that. Tension. The belly is such a strong spokesperson. The way it tightens with tension, the way it opens when there's ease and joy. It's a wonderful place to watch. Remember, we're not trying to fix or change anything. We are just inviting ourselves to be present with things as they are. When we're thusly present, we don't get so caught up in the stories, and it's the stories that create the suffering. Oh, I want my lily pad. What is your lily pad? How have you been relating to it? Can there be more softness and ease in the way you relate to it? If there's real physical discomfort, can we breathe around the discomfort and find it right there with the discomfort, the loving heart that knows how to be with discomfort, physical or emotional? I want to share this story, not out of a wow, what I could do, but out of the fruits of practice. So Hal had the stroke in February. I got up in the morning. I came to look for him because we were going to head to the gym very early. I came into the kitchen and he was lying unconscious or semi-conscious on the kitchen floor. And I could tell that something major was wrong. Well, my immediate reaction was, why are you on the kitchen floor? Did you drop something? And then I looked closer and I could see he was on his right side and he could move his left arm, but he couldn't really focus on me, and he was clearly in a lot of discomfort. And there was some vomit and blood on the floor around his face. So then, lack of mindfulness, I said, oh, should I call 911 now? Stop. Come into my telephone. Call 911. They said, we're coming. Open the door. And I went back to Hal. I was gone from him maybe for 1 minute. What can I do? So much agitation, so much fear, so much grief, so much anger. How dare you get sick? All of these emotions coming up. What can I do? So I just sat down on the floor and I took his left hand and I held it. I looked into his eyes and I said, breathe with me. Breathing in, breathing out. Breathing in, breathing out. I took a towel and placed it under his head so he'd be a little more comfortable, but I didn't want to move him much. Breathing in and breathing out. It wasn't just for me, it was for him. It was for both of us. So he started to relax a little and breathe with him. And then he's familiar with the loving kindness meditation, metta. May I have well-being. May you have well-being. May all beings everywhere have well-being. May I be safe and happy. May you be safe and happy. May all beings everywhere be safe and happy. May you have peace. May you have joy. May your body heal. May we all have healthy bodies. May you feel my love. So I just kept that up, alternating that with the breathing until the ambulance came. I can't say I was doing this for Hal. I was doing it because this is the fruit of practice in that kind of situation. Instead of running around screaming, my husband's lying on the floor, he might be dying. The practice allowed me to hold space for the enormous fear and grief and agitation and confusion and just breathe. It's so powerful. So we're going to pause now at 11 in this segment of it. Let me find out from all of you. My plan was to then move on to experienced, to have some of you meditate, others move on to experienced instruction. But my sense is that some of the beginners may want to listen in on this. How many of those who consider themselves beginners would like to hear what I'm saying to the experienced people? Is there anybody who is a beginner who does not want to hear this? Okay, so let's do this differently. Let's all stop and sit for 20 minutes. Let's get up and stretch now. Just take 1 minute to stretch. And then we're going to sit and meditate for 20 minutes. And then we'll move on to another step of instruction. Here, how we look. That reclines fully if you want it to. And I can give you a pillow. So if it would help you to lie down, you can do that. Whatever suits your needs best. Or move to a chair or whatever would be most
okay. She
comfortable
said
for
you
you.
were in the living room. Let's see.
Do you want a pillow?
I have mine.
Okay. Oh, we're ready, Tom.
Yeah, is everyone comfortable with the door open? Or do you want me to shut it?
What door is open?
The sliding door. Barbara asked me to open it.
Oh, for more air or?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
It got a little cooler, but that's okay. I can put on my sweater. No, I have a sweater.
Tom, are we ready?
Is there an extra blanket?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Are the curtains okay? The curtains?
Fine.
Fine?
Yeah. I like to get to see out. It makes the room darker when they're closed. But when the morning sun comes in that way, it's really nice.
You're right.
It's okay. If I was wrong, I would have fixed it.
Okay, so.
Give me 1 minute, please.
I think the door's a bit much, Tina.
That's fine.
No, it's about 50, whatever it is.
Yeah, I agree. If she has to wrap up, I'm sure she didn't. For the recording. Oh,
Oh,
That's
Mary,
okay.
still careful.
Thank you.
huh?
We're bubbling up.
Do you see who else? Lolita?
No,
I
I
guess
was
I'll take one.
asking for her.
This one's Lolita, this one's Javier. This, of course, is always.
Thank you, Mary.
Yeah. Yeah.
Allow the body to sit in an upright posture. Not slumped way over, but also not rigid. Relaxed. Feel the spine lengthening. Relaxed. If you're sitting in a chair, feet just comfortably on the floor. If you're sitting on a cushion, your legs may be crossed or lotus position. Any position of the legs that's comfortable, that provides a firm foundation so you don't have to worry about balance. Rest the hands on the lap or bring them together. There's no special position that's needed, whatever is comfortable. Looking around the room, Dallas is in what we call a lotus position, or half lotus. Others of you, it's hard to see exactly, but some people, Jim just sitting with his feet flat on the ground in front of him, hands resting on his lap. No special position. I find energetically, I like to have my hands like this because I can feel the flow of energy through my hands. When I feel like this, resting on my lap, of course, not up in the air. Breathing in, bringing attention to the touch of the breath of the upper lip and nostril. Those who are experienced students and use a different primary object, that's fine. Ignore my words. Breathing in and breathing out. Breathing in and knowing when I'm breathing in a long breath or a short breath. When I'm breathing out a long or a short breath. There's a little, let's call it, witnessing consciousness inside of us, something that can watch what's going on and isn't so caught up in, this is me, this is self. Just watching. This is how the body is right now. This is how the mind is right now. Breathing in, breathing out. If something pulls your attention away from your breath or other primary object, allow attention to move gently to the thing that's become predominant. There may be perception of what it is. Skunk smell. Body tension. Worrying and thought. Anger. Beautiful memory. Just allowing mind and body to touch this with a softness, being receptive to it, curious about it, but not trying to fix anything. But also very present, so we see when we start to get sucked into a story about this object. Body pain, I shouldn't be feeling pain. What's going on? Am I getting sick? Anger, remembering. He said this, he shouldn't have said this. This was very hurtful. He's always such a rude person. What am I going to do? I see him every day. I have to work with him. What am I going to do? You can feel it building into tension. Break into it. Just note, tension is predominant. The tension is obviously unpleasant, not pleasant. Breathing in, I am aware of the tension. Breathing out, I hold space for the tension without any story about it. As the tension passes away, come back to the breath. Maybe an itch. Unpleasant. Watching the arising of any story, and if it arises, just note the story. I think you will know what I mean by story. A story is something that's not the object itself. It's the, who let the horde of mosquitoes in here? There's got to be a whole horde of them because I have two different itches. Somebody must have left the window open. People are so thoughtless. Blah, 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 blah. Story. Come back, note it as a story, and come back to the direct experience, which is simply an itch. Maybe it's gone. Come back to the breath. This is all I want you to do. Just sitting, present with the primary object. As something becomes predominant, noting it, knowing it as pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. As it changes or dissolves, come back to the primary object. Just that. If it's hard and you find, I can't do it, that's just another story. Frustration. What's the direct experience of frustration? Can I be soft with myself, compassionate with myself, with frustration? I don't have to fix anything. It's just frustration. So I'm going to be quiet now for 20 minutes while we do this. I'll ring the bell at the end. And the people online, you're all sitting, as I can see. So just sit doing this practice until you hear the bell. And take just a minute to stretch there in place. And then we'll spend some time talking about what happened for you. Kathy, and do you want to bring a chair up? You sure? And this is open to anyone. I'm considering the 4 of you, 5 of you out there in internet land as a part of this room's circle. Just speak up, Dorothy and Musan. Identify yourself if you're online. Identify yourself wherever you are.
I'll speak for me, Dorothy Ann. I was falling asleep. Talk to us about falling asleep in meditation.
I was falling asleep. One of the things that commonly happens when we first start to meditate, and those coming to the retreat will find this, the first day, you just keep falling asleep. Our bodies are so accustomed to, when we close our eyes, falling asleep. The most valuable thing I know to do is simply to note sleeping. What is the experience of sleeping? It will have a special texture. For me just now, it was heavy, slow, warm, pleasant. I decided to allow myself to fall asleep because I knew I had a lot more teaching to do today, and if my body needed to sleep for 15 minutes, that was okay. But obviously, we don't want to spend all our meditation time sleeping. One thing that will help is simply to stand up. And it's fine in a retreat in the meditation hall just to stand up. Change your posture. Note, sleepy is an idea. How does it feel in the body? Is it pleasant? Is it unpleasant? You might ask, is this sleepiness a way of avoiding something? If I were not sleepy right now, what might I be experiencing? Sometimes that helps us to see deeper into some area of sadness or pain or fear, some discomfort that the sleepiness is habitually used to mask. Sometimes the most important thing to do is to just go someplace where you can lie down and take a nap. That's okay. Dallas.
The Korean tradition teaches to keep your eyes half open and gaze out 6 feet in front. Never close your eyes.
You can try that.
Well, that's what I've been doing for 30 years.
In this tradition, we close our eyes because there's less distraction from external objects. We're creating a place of more quietness. Now, obviously, we don't put earplugs in, so sound still exists. But we close our eyes, and then as sleepiness arises, it arises. I spent a week on a retreat at Thich Nhat Hanh's place in France. And I have some wonderful memories of mornings, eyes open, sitting on a cushion facing a stone wall, just looking at the wall and seeing how the stones were interset with each other, bigger stones, smaller stones, odd-shaped stones. how every stone was vital to the wall. And by the end of the week, looking at that wall had become a profound teaching. But it was very different from Vipassana. It was more reflection about interbeing. When your eyes are closed, we'll talk about this after lunch, but basically, we watch how objects arise into experience and they pass away. We watch any clinging to objects or aversion to objects. We start to develop profound wisdom about the nature of all conditioned objects, that when the conditions are present, the object will arise. When the conditions cease, the object will cease. And it's not me or mine. I stopped taking it so personal. This arose because conditions were present, including my participation. But I don't have to get caught up in the traditional stories I have about it. It arose, it will pass away. And as practice deepens, the whole mind and body seem almost to dissolve. Thoughts stop, we lose sensation of the body, awareness. Let me phrase it differently. The body just seems to dissolve. It's light, it just goes. And suddenly there's no self watching all of this world around me, but the world is still present. We move into a phase of practice we call access concentration. Access concentration is the place, and here we're getting into more advanced instruction, and those of you who are beginners, just listen without trying to figure it out, and someday it will make more sense. In the beginning of practice, we're working predominantly with mundane consciousness, which is aware of mundane objects. There is also a level of consciousness, I prefer to call it awareness, which is aware of supramundane objects. By supramundane objects, I mean those objects that exist because the unconditioned exists. God, divine, whatever we want to call it. But they have no need of any conditioned realm thing in order to exist. Such objects are luminosity, for example, just radiance everywhere. Very high vibrational energy. The sound we call nada, like cosmic om. It's like a sound of crickets chirping. But it's not a sound we hear with ears. Each physical sense and mind has its own expression of the unconditioned. Nada hearing, luminosity seeing, body feeling, energy. And tastes like far sweeter than honey. A scent. And the mind just opens out into a vastness of infinite and still and peaceful. So we start to have these indirect experiences of the unconditioned. This is a later phase of practice, but one of the grounds for it is sitting with the open eyes. I'm sitting with the closed eyes because we are closing ourselves away from the tumult of the world. This practice is so beautiful and it gradually deepens. I think the insight that we want to be increasingly aware of today is simply that objects are arising out of conditions and passing away, and how we habitually get caught in stories And that maybe we don't need to get so caught in the stories. It's not I won't get caught in the story, it's so much as saying, this is what's happening right now. Just come back to the breath. I have the ability to release the story. And those stories create so much of our agitation and our suffering. And our suffering in relation to others as well. Because my story is about your story and how you should be. So there's a lot of freedom there. Others.
Question.
Lolita.
When I was a beginner with Vipassana, and the teacher talked about stories, I did not fully understand that. So maybe it would be helpful to new people to give some insight.
Thank you, Lolita. Okay, so by story, I just sipped some tea and the lid of the cup had some moisture on it that dripped on my dress. In this moment, all that happened is that there's some moisture on my dress, and maybe it will stain the dress, or maybe it's just water. Seeing, feeling, moisture. Oh, it will stain my dress. Oh, I should have been more careful. Oh, I'm always so clumsy. Why did I do that to myself? These are stories. A friend called it our top 10 hit parade. Each of us has her own top 10. The stories that are just repetitive. I'm not good enough, or I should be able to fix this, or I'm helpless, or nobody loves me, or everybody is always trying to control me, or whatever your story may be. And as we pay attention to them, we see how repetitive they are. And maybe, just maybe in this moment, I can put it down. Maybe I don't need this story. We start to ask questions like, if I did not have this story, what might I be experiencing? What does the story protect me from? We don't try to figure it out. We just note the possibility. In this moment, this story has arisen. It's out of habitual energy. This is what happens. When this happens, this is what happens. Is it just running on its own energy? And once I start to note it, it goes. That's one part. Another possibility is that I'm hooked into it somewhere, that I'm still using it because it protects me from something. Some of you will be at the retreat, and at the retreat we'll talk about a practice called the 7-branch prayer that a number of you have done with it, which is a beautiful practice of looking at these strong habitual patterns, habitual stories, noting that they really do not serve me or anyone, and how strongly they're driven by habit energy, and finding the enormous power in ourselves, the love in ourselves, to begin to let go of the stories. For me, a very predominant story through the early part of my life was one of unworthiness. I grew up in a home with loving parents, but they were very busy with their lives. And in those days, back in the 1940s, there was a belief that nannies were helpful in a home. And it was good to leave your child with the nanny. The nanny was the expert at child. And my parents would go out most nights. So when I was 5 years old, my nanny got sick and had to leave. And I was not informed about it ahead of time. Suddenly she was gone. I was angry. I was scared. She had been more like a mother to me than my mother to that point in my life. Suddenly she was gone. I was told, don't be angry. It's not her fault. She got sick. Well, if I can't be angry at her, who should I be angry at? The anger was still there. So I turned the anger into myself, which is something so many of us do, especially people on a spiritual path. We believe, I shouldn't be angry. We turn the anger into ourselves because we feel I shouldn't be angry at the other person. We're afraid of our power. We start to feel unworthiness, to limit our power. We're afraid of the power of our anger. So with the question, what does this protect me from? It protects me against for that 6-year-old, what felt like that rage that could kill and destroy. Turned into myself. So I spent many years working with feelings of unworthiness and abandonment issues. In my late teens, maybe 20 years old, I connected with a wonderful therapist who helped me to see what I was doing. I became able not to get so caught in the stories, but they still arose. I became able to see this is a story and to step back from it. But it was still happening. Finally, at a month-long meditation retreat, and this was back 1991. So I was almost 50 years old. The story had been with me a long time. The idea came up when we were told at a retreat, no talking, no eye contact. I started to make eye contact with people and they turned their head away. Every time they turned their head away, it brought that, oh, they don't love him again. By turning their gaze away, they're abandoning. Therefore, I'm no good. Stop. What's happening in this moment? This person is merely following the instruction of the retreat. It has nothing to do with me. Come back to this moment and attend to the enormity of the pain. Finally, I was able to touch the pain and anger of that abandonment without putting more stories around. Just enormous pain and anger and fear. I was really able to hold that 6-year-old in my heart for the first time. It was good. It was a month-long retreat. I needed the whole month doing this over and over and over. Until finally, when I looked at somebody and they looked away, it was just somebody looking away and there were no more stories. It was a beautiful release of that particular story. So this is what I mean about stories and how the practice really can support our doing. Give us the courage to look at let me say this carefully, this is not a psychoanalytical kind of thing. It's more presence with ourselves and with our ancient stories and beginning to trust the radiance in ourselves, to trust the love in ourselves and the power of that love, that we can trust ourselves and begin to release the stories that have led us to so much suffering. This kind of release does not directly lead to physical healing, but often it does lead indirectly to physical healing because our illnesses come from so many reasons, so many causes. I was talking to somebody last month who was experiencing fissures, and just where the rectum there was tearing, and no special cause for it. The doctors were giving external and internal treatment, but as we talked about it and talked about this person's habitual pattern of holding his energy tight like this, whenever there was stress in his life, whenever there was too much going on, and this is a person who loves to take care of others, so was always carrying everything for others. You can feel what this might do to that part of the body if you're always carrying heavy weight. So we began to look at this. How is this connected? In what way can I begin when I feel pain in the anal area? Can I breathe and release what I'm carrying? So this is just a small example of how we can begin to see what's happening in our body. Not to fix it, but out of love, out of kindness, to begin to pay attention to the pains of our body. We need to be very careful. Sometimes teachers have said, well, why are you causing this ailment? But of course, we're not causing it. We never want to be doing that. But we have habitual patterns that are triggering it. And the insight into those patterns and the release of those patterns can lead to the body's ability to begin more strongly to heal itself and to release the causes for the ailments. And I'm going to give one more example of this, a personal one. After I lost my hearing, can the camera zoom back? Way back. More. Okay. After I lost my hearing, it affected the semicircular canal, so I had no balance. So I started to walk with my feet. You can't really see my feet, but my feet were splayed out, and I was walking like this to try to balance myself, which created a lot of back pain. And it was just fear of no balance. I began to work with a Feldenkrais practitioner who first pointed out, straighten your feet. Lift your head up. At first it was very hard because my body was so accustomed to being bent. And it was very scary to take a step. But working with Vipassana with that, is that so? Maybe I just think awful. And at one point, I'm not going to go in depth into this story. You can leave that wide for a minute, leave it open. At one point, I was invited to go out in deep snow, put down my walking sticks, and let myself fall. And I did it over and over. I was at a retreat in a place where the snow was hip deep. It was a soft landing. I was dressed very warm, and I just fell into the snow. And I got up, and I took a couple of steps, and I fell again and again. And I started to see that falling was not the problem. Fear of falling was the issue. Yeah. What if I'm not afraid to fall? What if I can really dance? What if I can stand up and be balanced? Yes. So this is a metaphor and a fact for me of my life. I use a walker, but I can also, I'm weaning myself from the walker now. And just balance, literally and as a metaphor, is there. we can find that balance. So fear of falling, no balance, is another, it's literal. There is no inner ear balance, but it's mostly based on the fear of fall. Giving ourselves permission to fall. Okay, it's after 12. I'm going to read you a poem. And then I'm going to take a break here. Let me find this poem. I should have saved it, but it will only take me a minute to find it. This is a poem by a man named Dan Nussbaum. And my back is going to have to be to the camera because I forgot to print it out. I have permission to have forgotten to print it out. So I'll try to turn aside a little bit so I'm not totally back to the camera. I'd like you to reflect on this during the lunch break. You have permission to do the meditation practice you've been doing all along. You have permission to believe in it, or question it, or enjoy it, or let it take you where it takes you. You have permission to be bored. How else will you ever get to the bottom of boredom? You have permission to try something else. You have permission to think. You have permission to worry. You have permission to wonder if you're doing it right. You have permission to wonder what doing it right means. You have permission to see yourself wondering. Did you start meditation to become a good meditator? You have permission to do it wrong. But if you have permission to do it wrong, how can you do it wrong? You have permission to be bad. You have permission to remember what it was like to be carefree. You have permission to doubt those memories. You have permission to go back to those memories, whether you made them up or not. You have permission to remember how you make up memories. You have permission to go over German verbs. You have permission to think about the different grades of motor oil. You have permission to wonder, how is this meditation? You have permission to note body sensations. You have permission to do something else with body sensations. Love them. Be suspicious of them. Forbid them. Give them meaning. Question that meaning. You have permission to have feelings. You have permission to need someone. To worry out of habit. To fear vaguely. To feel disgust. To insist on getting things your way. You have permission to let things go on. You have permission to find yourself in unexpected mind states. You have permission to get lost. You have permission to be curious and interested. You have permission to get transfixed. You have permission to feel calm. You have permission to feel sleepy. You have permission to sleep. How else will you know about waking up if you don't have permission to be asleep? You have permission to know yourself in meditation. You have permission. You have permission. You have permission. So let's take a half an hour to eat. And I will be in here. I'm happy to talk to people. Online, you'll have to probably use the chat to talk to me, to ask questions. And live in here. And people can go outside and walk in the yard. People can sit out in the chairs there. People can sit in the dining room. There's a kettle for hot water and some instant coffee and tea.